So this is one way of counteracting that particular reason for fear. As for attachment to the body and attachment to sensual pleasures, the Buddha has a double-pronged attack. One is to see the drawbacks of being attached to these things. If you're attached to the body, where is it going to take you? It's going to take you to aging, illness, and death, for sure. It may take you to other places in the meantime, but the ultimate end is something we all share. And we all know for sure that's going to happen. The same holds true for sensual pleasures. Where are the sensual pleasures you were enjoying last week? Right now all you have is a memory of them. And sometimes that memory is tainted by the realization that you did unskillful things in order to gain those pleasures. And many times when you gain a pleasure, other people will want what you've got, and they're going to fight you for it. The image the Buddha has is of a bird, like a hawk, that's found a little lump of meat. As soon as it tries to carry it off, other birds are going to come and attack it. Or of a man sitting up in a tree of fruit, enjoying the fruit in the tree, but another man comes along, he's got a hatchet, and he, instead of climbing up in the tree, he's going to cut the tree down. Finding your happiness in sensual pleasures leaves you in a position of a lot of danger. This is why the Buddha recommends right concentration as a source for happiness, because you can sit here and bathe the body in a sense of ease and a sense of rapture simply by focusing on the breath. Adjusting the breath so that it's comfortable, and then once it really feels good, just settling in. Letting the breath bathe you in all directions, coming in and out all the pores of the body. Allowing that sense of ease and rapture to fill the whole body. As you get really adept at this, you find that your attachment to sensual pleasures begins to loosen, because you see that this is a much better pleasure. It's more intense, it's more pervasive, more reliable, less blameworthy, and a lot less dangerous. So right concentration is, in a very direct way, one of the ways of overcoming fear of death, because you realize you have an alternative source of pleasure here. But the ultimate step lies in, as the Buddha says, seeing the true Dharma, which means realizing that there is something deathless that can be touched by the mind. And that comes not just through concentration, but also working on the insight, or the opportunities for insight that the concentration provides. As the mind gets more and more still, you can begin to see the mind's attachments. You can see them as activities, even its sense of itself, or your sense of yourself. You begin to realize that these are all just strategies that you've created. The Buddha calls it a process of I-making and my-making. In whatever way you form a sense of self around form or feelings or perceptions, thought constructs, or consciousness, it's all just fabrication. And in the process of fabrication, there's stress. And if that's all there were in life, then you'd be willing to put up with the stress. But the Buddha says there's more. If you can learn how to deconstruct all these fabrications, all the stories and ideas and things that you build around your sense of who you are and who other people are and what the world is. If you can learn to deconstruct those things, and that's what right mindfulness and right concentration are about. Providing you with a framework in which you can do the deconstruction. And the deconstruction is Four Noble Truths, just looking at things in terms of stress and the cause of stress, what you're doing to put an end to that cause, and the actual end of stress that comes as you get more and more precise and more skilled at following the path. It leads you to detect even more subtle levels of fabrication going on in the mind. when you see the stress that comes with it, then see that you also have the choice not to fabricate. That whatever gratification you got from the fabrication just can't compare with the sense of ease that comes from dropping that particular level of fabrication. The mind would be willing to let go, willing to stop. And peels these levels of fabrication away, like peeling away the levels of the layers in an onion. And when all intention finally ends, that's when you realize, okay, there is something deathless. The Buddha was right. There's something that can be touched in the mind that doesn't require fabrication. In fact, it is totally unfabricated. It has nothing to do with time or space or anything that can die or age, grow ill, or die at all. It's just there. And it can be touched by undoing the patterns of intention and fabrication in the mind. Once you've touched that, then you realize, okay, there's something that doesn't die. It has nothing to do with you. All it was through your activities and intentions, skillful intentions that took apart your other intentions, that got you to the point where you could realize this. But because there's no need to strategize in there, there's no self that comes with the felt need to strategize, or the felt need to partake of this. It's just there. You don't need to partake of it. Once you see that, that's what really gets you beyond fear of death. Because the part that doesn't die is much more worthwhile than the things that do die. Now, at the moment, all of this is just ideas, possibilities. For people who are still pursuing it, but it's important to have a sense of what's possible, because that expands your imagination. As your imagination gets expanded, then your desires change as well. If you think the deathless is impossible, okay, your desires are going to focus on things that can die. If you open up to the possibility that there is a deathless that can be attained through human effort, it's a challenge. Hopefully it stirs some desire in the mind to follow the path, to test if what the Buddha said is really true. So keep this possibility in mind, because that is what gives energy to the desire to stick with right effort, to stick with the path. So it's not just ideas or news of somebody else's claims. So it ultimately does become an actual experience based on your actual efforts. It's not just news about what somebody did in the past. It becomes your news. Of course, nobody else has to know. As the chant says, it's bachatang. It's something that each person can experience only for him or herself. But when it becomes a reality in your mind, it makes a huge change. Aging, illness, and death don't hold any fear. As one of the texts says, you attain something that allows you to live in peace and ease, and even bliss, even when you're old, even when you're sick, even when you die. Now that's a possibility that's really worth exploring.